In the previous video, we created an application to connect to our SQL server and display the data here in our Windows form. Now we will continue working our application, so let's start. So first, let's add a group box. Where's that? Then let's change the label to add. Now let's drag it here. Now let's add a label. Let's change the text to first name. Then text box. Let's change the name of this to txt add fn. Then let's copy this, and for this one change it to last name. Let's add the space, same with here. Then change the name of the text box to txt add ln. Then let's add a button. Let's call it bt and save. And then let's change the text to save. Let's move it here. Then double click to save button. Then here we need to add if statement to check if our first name and last name text box are not empty. Open our employee repository to implement our add method. So we can copy our get all method and paste it here. Change the name get all to add. Then we need a parameter of employee. Then we will not going to return anything, so change it to void. Then we can delete this one, also this. And then here we need to change our command text to execute our insert command. We need to add $sign here, then insert into employees, then first name, last name, values. Then here, because of the $sign, we can now insert our object employee dot first name, then employee dot last name. Then let's execute our command. So go back to our form, double click save. Then inside the if statement, let's call our employee repository dot add. Then let's create a new employee. First name equals to txt add fn dot text. Then last name equals to txt add ln dot text. Then we need to set our text field to empty, so we can do that by assigning it to string.empty. Then after that, we need to refresh the data of our DataGridView, so we will do it DataGridView1 dot data source equals to employee repository dot get all. Now we can test our code and see if we can add the data here. IRA, GALS, click save. Now you can see we can now add, so our code is working. We can now continue implementing other part. So let's go back to our code and then copy this one and paste it here. Um, let's change the label of this one to details. Okay, let's drag it here. Then copy the first name and paste it here. Change the first name to ID. Then set the ID text field to read only. Then the name to txt ID. Then this one is txt fn. Then txt ln. Let's move the controls upward. Then here let's change it to btn delete. Then the text to delete. Then copy the button. Then change this one to update. Then the other one to btn update. Now we need to display the selected data in our grid to our text field. So to do that, go to events, then cell click. Then let's check if there's a selected row. If DataGridView1 dot selected rows dot count is greater than 0, then we will get the first row. Then let's convert it back to employee type. This is the advantage of binding the class into DataGrid. We can easily convert it back to its type. So let's assign to our txt.id that text is equal to employee.id the toString txtfn.text equals to employee that first name txtln the text is equal to employee that last name. Now let's try to see if our code works. Now we can see that it displayed the selected item. So since it works, we can now continue working on our update command. Click update. Then here we also need to add checking if the text field for ID, first name and last name is not empty, just like what we did earlier in add command. Then we can go back to our employee repository to implement our update. So let's just copy our add method, then change the add to update. Then change the command text to update employees set first name equals to employee that first name last name equals to employee that last name where ID equals to employee that ID. Now we can go back to our form and see if our code works. Call employee repository dot update. Then let's pass our employee here. ID is equal to int dot parse txt id dot text. First name equals to txt fn dot text. Last name equals to txt ln dot text. Then we need to refresh the data of our data grid. So data grid view1 that data source equals to employee repository that get all. Now let's run it again. Let's try to update Alex Kalin to Alexis. Click update. Now you can see that it updates the data in grid. So let's change John to James. Update. Now we can now we know that our update command is working. We can now implement our delete. So go back to our form, double click to delete. Let's just copy our code in update, paste it here, then remove the code from update, then go back to our employee repository, copy paste the code in update, then paste it here, change the name of update to delete, then instead of employee we will just accept in ID. Then let's change the command text to delete from employees where ID equals to ID. Now go back to our form, then let's call our employee the repository dot delete, then int dot parse txt id dot text. Then let's change the value of our text fields to string.empty. Txt id dot text equals to string.empty. Txt fn dot text equals to string.empty. Txtln.text equals to string.empty. Then let's try to run it again. Then let's try to delete